The stocks are hitting the limit down. He is really suffering losses today. One of his accounts has lost over 80,000 yuan. He took a screenshot during the trading session. Everyone can feel the severity of the situation. What else can he do? He can only choose to support the market. Thus, millions are in a dire state. Moreover, this drop is caused by the indiscriminate tariffs imposed by the US. Look at the US stock market. It has already dropped over 10%. And there are no signs of recovery. It continues to fall. What's the key issue? The key issue is that the advisor of the US leader said, "If you don't sell, you won't lose." He tells everyone not to panic. It's just a technical adjustment. In the future, the US stock market will recover fully. He can only say that this kind of blatant deception is something he needs to learn from the US stock market. Since the leader took office, the market has fallen nearly 30%. The US leader is inflicting harm. He loses 1,000 to kill 100. The market value evaporated could match the total market value of A shares. For example, in recent days, Apple lost nearly $300 billion in market value in one day. Because Apple's technology chain heavily relies on the global supply chain. It depends on globalization. Currently, Apple's entire supply chain has about 15% of suppliers from the US. Over 80% comes from Asia. Especially in production. It is even more reliant on East Asia. And these Asian regions are the focus of the US leaders' attacks. The key point is, if Apple sells in the US, it counts as imports. Imports will face tariffs of over 40%. Apple's global sales, 40% of sales, are in the US. So, how can Apple withstand this? Let's see how big the impact on Apple is. Now, almost all American tech companies are facing this situation. Their supply chains are all overseas. In the US, the cost of the supply chain is too high. So, the US claims to target high-end manufacturing. But the first to suffer are actually US companies. For example, Nike's design and branding center is in the US. But all products are made in Asia. 25% are produced in East Asia, 40% in Vietnam. Now, most of Nike's production is in Vietnam. And East Asia and Vietnam now face an average tariff increase of 40%. How will Nike operate in A shares in the future? This is a direct hit. In fact, it's not falling as much as the US market. Regarding the sharp drop in the stock market, he thinks they shouldn't stand by. The central bank previously said it would lower interest rates when the time is right. This might be to address the impact of US tariffs. Now that the market has fallen so much, they can lower rates more than expected. Right? Moreover, the fiscal deficit rate has risen from 3% to 4%. This is also to stimulate domestic demand and consumption. He believes that a rate cut may come soon. And the US leader's policy is actually applying extreme pressure. The US has stated, if they consider selling TikTok, the US will reduce tariffs on us. This means the US aims to take a piece of the pie from East Asia. But clearly, in 2021, they couldn't take much. Now it's even less likely. 6 years ago, when the US imposed tariffs, the trade volume between the US and East Asia was around $633 billion. This accounted for about 13.7% of East Asia's total trade. It was about 3.5% of national GDP. But over 6 years, East Asia has become stronger. Now, exports have grown from $2.49 trillion in 2018 to $3.58 trillion by 2024. Oh. And the trade with the US now accounts for an increasingly smaller share of East Asia's GDP. By 2024, the trade surplus with the US will account for only 1.83%. They won 6 years ago, let alone today. Otherwise, the sixth-generation fighter jets and drones would be for nothing. Thus, an American economist calculated that tariffs could drive US inflation up by 5.5%, while East Asia could see a negative inflation of 0.7%. It truly is a decisive moment. He believes the strong market will ultimately prevail. The US will not stop their rise. He can only support the market. Finally, he encourages everyone to follow the channel. The market is full of uncertainties. He will help you see clearly.